You know, the temperature has been going up since I was born.
You have millions of vehicles just pumping so much stuff.
And in fact,
the climate has to react.
There's been changes that the season is getting earlier, it's getting more, it's becoming
completely unpredictable and extreme.
What my main concern is with climate change is, are we going to be able to keep feeding our population?
I don't know if there's ever been sort of more scientifically relevant issue.
Lost dancing.
Where are you boys off to?
We're gonna go film for the documentary.
I heard it was a hot one outside. You might want to put on some shorts.
What do you think this documentary is about? Crazy, however much, like give all.
All right. Hi, I'm Jack Sykowski. I hope it's on. Is it good? All right. And I'm 58 years old. I've been teaching now for 30 years, but prior to that, I started as an engineer. My degree was from UMass, industrial engineering, and I worked at some different mills around New England for a few years before transitioning into teaching.
So I'm Josh Rapp. I'm a senior forest ecologist at Mass Audubon. The work I do here is focused on climate smart forestry, so adapting forests so that they can better withstand climate change, and also using forests as a way to fight climate change. And then I also do research on maple syrup and how climate change is impacting maple syrup. And that involves every year collecting sap, measuring how much sap is collected, how much sugar is in that sap, so the sugar content of the sap, and then correlating that with the weather and climate.
My name is Denise Barstow-Mans. I'm part of the 7th generation here at Barstow's Longview Farm in Hadley. And my family's been farming on this land for 217 years. Our farm motto is looking forward since 1806. So that is our commitment every single day to our herd, to our land, to our workforce, our community, and to our food system. We have 600 head, we milk 300 cows, and we're part of the Cabot Agri-Mart Cooperative. I moved out west, I was a trail guide in Glacier National Park, and I realized that I wasn't back home taking care of the place that I grew up in. My family has been here for a really long time. I wanted to continue that legacy and that story. I think that talking to the public is really important. People need to know where their food comes from, and I've kind of just evolved into the PR person on the farm.
My name is Amanda Brown. I am a senior lecturer of sustainable food and farming in the Stockbridge School of Agriculture. I also am the director of the UMass Student Farm and the Agricultural Learning Center. My main desire in coming to UMass was to study horticulture. And so I was a horticulture major in the Stockbridge School when it was only offering 2-year degrees. So I got an associate's degree in horticulture, and then I continued on and got a bachelor's degree in plant and soil science. I think it was during my senior year I met Ruth Hazard, who at the time was the director of the vegetable program through Extension, and she offered me a summer job. That was like the very humble beginnings of my Extension career. And so throughout the time I was working with the extension program, I went back to school and I got a master's in education.
My name is Michael Doctor. I'm 61 years old here in Hadley for the last 25 years, I guess. And I am a very, very recently retired farmer. I started and ran Winter Moon Roots for the last decade and a half, and for a couple decades before that, I ran the food bank farm of Western Mass, which is in the backyard here, which is a big CSA that fed about 1,000 local families. Currently, I own half of and operate half of Meteor Tortillas, along with Jorge Sosa from Meteor Restaurant. We make local and organic corn tortillas out of corn that's bought from the immediate neighborhood here.
And now I have to ask you, what's your role in the Climate Change Committee?
Currently, I'm the chair, although I think over the summer we might go to a more co-chair model, and trying to lead the way as best as I can, pulling in information, lining up guest speakers, networking.
But at what point did it make this transition to be way more, environmentally conscious?
Yeah, I think, one of the reasons I wanted to come back and be a part of my family's dairy farm is because we've always been thinking forward. Our motto, looking forward, since 1806 really speaks to that. And I know even as a kid, there was dairy magazines spread out in the office and at my grandmother's house for everyone to read, so we could learn about the latest technology, the new best practices for animal care. And I think having that ongoing conversation as a family has led us to where we are now. A lot of times I think that people think of dairy farms and think of them being in the past, but technology makes things better for our animals and better for our bodies, and in a lot of cases better for the environment.
Creating the student farm was my dream job. The main goal of that program is to provide students with a hands-on learning training opportunity in vegetable production. Students who are enrolled get academic credit, and they also get a paid summer internship on the farm where they run their own farm. I feel very fortunate in that the decisions I made professionally have gotten me to this point now that I can be involved in something that makes people feel that they're part of something bigger.
What have you learned from the side of being involved in the energy field and kind of climate change through this whole time?
Well, climate change has been my main motivator and concern almost my whole cognizant life since I was 13 in 1973 during the oil embargo, and there were lines at the gas stations, and it got us all thinking a little bit about our energy use at that time. And then I learned about global warming in a college class in 1982, and I remember the professor said, well, there's no real proof that this is going to happen, but what should we be doing about it? And the answer on the written essay or something was, he wanted us to use the word and the thought prudent. In 1982, it would be prudent of us, given the fact that the whole world could roast, if we began to think about and do something about this. And that was a long time ago. And the fossil fuel industry, along with a lot of politicians that depend on a lot of money every time they run for election, have managed to obfuscate that reality that we have to do something for all those years until now when...
What you guys up to?
We're just editing the climate change documentary. You want to watch?
Not really. I'm making some waffles though. Do you guys want some?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Alright. Come meet me in there.
I got you.
Woo. Waffles. Oh, there's no maple syrup? Oh my God. Man, you won't believe the price of these peppers at the store. They even have maple syrup.
Dude, I'm telling you, you should join us for this documentary.
What's that?
Because we're talking about exactly what you were just saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I got some homework to do. Another time, maybe.
You know, farming is getting to be more and more precarious everywhere.
Climate change is absolutely impacting our farm and the entire dairy industry.
The biggest factor that we're juggling with is just the weather extremes.
Weather is like what's happening this week, what's happening this year, what's happening over the next few years.
If we start with the cropland, you know, last year we had a drought. In 2016 we had a really serious drought. And the year prior to last year we had a lot of rain.
As the atmosphere warms up, it is able to hold on to more moisture. And since there's more moisture in the atmosphere, when there's a storm, the storms tend to be much more intense. That causes a big problem for agriculture because what we need is a nice gentle rain every once in a while. What we absolutely don't want is a heavy downpour that will wash out our little seeds and seedlings, compact the soil and make it so there's no air in there so the roots can't grow, and most importantly, just make a mess with diseases and viruses and everything else that actually come in from splashing in the mud.
If it rains for a month, then you're also really in trouble. Your fields are saturated. Roots are rotting, there's no oxygen in the soil. A lot of farmers will talk about how it's easier to put water on a field than to try and take it off. And then we'll have years where it doesn't rain from May until end of September.
This past year, Rosendo, who was owning Winter Moon Roots, you know, had a drought for most of the year.
Wells were running dry because there was no water, it didn't rain.
It was really hot. It was really tough for the crew to be out there. It wasn't just me, it was everybody. It was pretty brutal some days.
If it's really bone dry, seeds don't germinate. And so, you know, for farmers, you've already put the investment in to purchase the seed, you've prepped the land, and your seeds are just sitting there.
I see water bans put into place, whether it's Amherst or Hadley or other local communities where there's just not enough water for people to keep their lawns green.
It's either floods or droughts. That's really been our biggest challenge since I would say about 2018. You know, we'll have years where it's just, we'll get a foot of rain in a month, and then we'll have years where it doesn't rain from May until end of September.
What climate change ultimately is going to make more challenging for producers is the uncertainty and the variability.
It's just really challenging to have the one thing that is probably the biggest influence on how well your season's going to go be completely unpredictable and extreme.
What my main concern is with climate change is, are we going to be able to keep feeding our population?
Prices are up. You know, it's a shame seeing the receipt every week from Big Y where it used to be $150 spent on groceries and now it's $200.
We're making food for our community. There's not a lot of money making food. So the lobbyists that the dairy industry have are nothing compared to what the oil and gas industries have. So they're constantly telling people to look over there, you know, look at the farm, when in reality, that is the biggest contributor to climate change, hands down, bar none, is oil and gas usage.
You have millions of vehicles just pumping so much stuff, so many pollutants into the sky every day. The climate has to react.
Compare last year, this past season, yields were, 3 times what they were the year before when we had a lot of these nasty rainstorms. That's pretty significant.
Glad that turned around better, but not necessarily
Better this year, worse last. Who knows about next year?
Here you go, man. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask again, but we're going to go film the final interview.
Do you think I could join?
Yeah. Come. 26, 30.
Hey, it's going well. Good to see you.
Hi, Jack. I'm Michael.
Good to see you. Hi, nice to meet you.
Awesome. Well, I hope you're ready.
Now we're going to transition it to solutions, and I feel like it might be more impactful if you were to be the one to ask the questions.
I'd really like that.
Awesome. Let's change.
Hi, Michael. Good to meet you.
Hi, Jack. I'm really excited to be here. I was just hanging out at home. I didn't really know what the effects of climate change were, and I'm just really blessed that two of my good friends happen to be working on a documentary, and I'm just really excited to be here and dive a little bit deeper into that. So one of the first questions I have for you is,
How do you make things better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people need to wake up, and we need to figure out how to support each other as a society and as a human race globally, and get over the hopelessness of a seemingly very dire situation. I don't think we're out of time, but time is running. The clock is ticking for sure.
And more when I follow some real scientists, and they just say, things are happening really fast, faster than we ever expected. And I think that's a huge concern.
Start with reduce and see if there's a way you can simplify your life.
Just use less. So often, you just don't need all the extra.
You have to figure out how to minimize your own contribution to the problems that are coming down the pike. Maybe it's eating a lot less meat. Maybe it's riding your bike, getting on the bus, not owning a car. There's lots of things that are pretty impactful. Turning off the heat, turning down the heat, turning off the lights. Using an energy efficient appliances. All those things really add up on a personal level.
Think globally, act locally. I think that's a good thing, right? Because you focus on what you can impact yourself.
As a group of small agents of change, we can make big change.
I mean, it takes a village. It does take the individual, and it also takes the CEOs and the huge corporations, of course. And in reality, that is you. That is the next generation of people who are in charge, or the people who are in school right now.
So there's small stuff you can do in your day-to-day life, such as composting, again, supporting local farmers, and making decisions about how you're going to live your life day to day. Go for a walk.
Getting in shape and getting on your bicycle. You can cover an awful lot of ground on a bicycle, and have a hell of a lot of fun doing it.
I think students have an amazing ability to create change, and they're at the perfect time of life to influence each other and also impact using their wallets by supporting farmers.
So using local food instead of buying food that's been moved a long way to get here.
90% of the fuel that's used or embedded in the things that we eat comes from distribution and marketing of that food from all over the globe to get it here, refrigerate it, package it. 90% of that fuel is in that category, and it leaves about 10% of the fuel that is actually used on the farm.
See if you can supplement your weekly shopping if it's financially not an option for you to completely shop locally, which I think that often is a barrier that I hear from people. But is there a way that you can not necessarily spend more, but look at your finances to see where you can shift things?
Even I'm guilty of feeling like, oh, well, I made this dinner, but I got, this ingredient is from South America. every local purchase really does make a difference. So if you are committing to purchasing local at a farmer's market or at your local farm store, that ripples through this whole rural economy.
Shopping with your own moral compass on and just thinking a little bit more intently about how you can financially support folks who are trying to make a living, especially in this local food system.
Make sure that every decision that's made has the climate and the future of our planet in mind.
Thinking about how people are going to get from point A to B without getting in a car, because cars are kind of the problem. They're, what, 50% of the fossil fuel use in this country?
You know, obviously the biggest kind of overarching driver of climate change is fossil fuel emissions. So anything you can do in your life to reduce fossil fuel emissions, whether that's, you know, and students are already often doing this anyway, using public transportation rather than driving a car or biking or walking, you know.
But then also making sure that your voice is heard.
We've always had a voice. Now we've really found our voice. Next, we need to use our voice in sharing some of these ideas.
And supporting the people who are actually making policy changes. To me, I feel like that's what matters. We all have a boss at the end of the day. And so how do you want to create and be part of a society that is being led by people who are holding the same values as you?
I think that's an area of great opportunity. I think we need climate change czars, you know, real leaders in the cabinet in Washington, in Boston. Oh, I will say one thing that's happened in the State House, and I think since we talked the last time, is there is now a leader of like climate change remediation or whatever her title is. I think her name is Melissa Hoffer, and she's a new cabinet member in the state. This has never happened before. Incredible.
We really need to see some some big change and some mandated laws for these giant corporations. You know, there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money moving out of our community into the hands of people who don't have the best interests of our community in mind. So when you buy something on Amazon versus something that you could buy at the local store, you're sending your money out of your community, which makes it harder for that community to be climate resilient, to be sustainable, and to keep their rural economy happening.
Getting out there and voting and just educating yourself about what actions and steps you can take that are actually going to influence change.
There's sort of business you're going into, there's going to be some impact on climate change, on your supply chain or on something. And so pulling that into whatever you're thinking about, and as you think about where you want to go with your life, you know, just have that be part of it. Doesn't have to be the whole thing, right? But you know, just that can be part of whatever you're interested in.
One thing is creating sort of a sustainability map for yourself, and really just thinking about ways which you can live your life to not only help reduce the impacts of climate change, but also think about ways in which you can make certain decisions to help yourself survive and be healthy, whether that's taking a walk, whether it's supporting local businesses or even big companies that have philanthropic missions to help support climate change initiatives.
So be open to every possibility. Read all you can about this. Check in with the New York Times and see what they're saying. Talk to your parents, talk to your neighbors about this, and see what people are doing to make a difference in the world.
How do you come together and create solutions? You're very smart people. You're a very passionate generation. You're like concerned, and I think that's a really good thing because it motivates people to find solutions to really complex problems, and this is a pretty big one.
The more we can connect and the more we can talk about it, the more we can start figuring out solutions.
Go for a walk, go outside. Remember that you're like a being on this planet with a purpose to take care of it. And I think we all get a little bit lost in our day-to-day, what's happening. Things move really fast now, and there's a lot of distractions, and look, it just happened. Was that weird? That's what I'm talking about. Take this thing and silence it for a portion of your day if you can.